Hi everyone. So for this assignment I chose a book that could be used for 7th grade social studies teachers studying the American Revolution and the founding documents. This book is called George versus George, The American Revolution as Seen from Both Sides by Rosalind Shanzer. As the title suggests, this book tells the story of the two leaders of the American Revolution, King George III and George Washington. It shows the people that they were and not just how they were known or thought of today. It shows the two lands in a time of peace and prosperity and how the tensions started to build and the colonies became more frustrated with the British and with King George and until the war finally breaks out between the two countries. And so you'll see from the illustrations, you get a sense of what life was like for George Washington and for King George. The text and illustrations show the soldiers that fought for the different soldiers that fought for the British, as well as the soldiers that fought for the Americans. Shows Hessian mercenaries and what they looked like, and it also shows, the different areas of the Continental soldiers and the colonial militia. And finally, it shows the progress of the war and how Americans and foreigners felt about the war and the final battle of Yorktown and the Treaty of Paris. And it also goes on to show what happened afterwards to King George III and to George Washington after the war. It talks about King George and why we think of him as a crazy man today, and it also shows how George Washington was chosen as the head of the Constitutional Convention and became the first president of the United States. I learned a lot in this book and would recommend it to anyone interested in learning more about that time period. The illustrations only add to the text and the captions are spot on. The captions are taken from actual quotes of figures from that time period. I found several books that would work well with this picture book. And one, which I would highly recommend, is The Declaration of Independence, illustrated and inscribed by Sam Fink. To me, this is a book that should be in every middle school and high school library. It provides the text of the Declaration, phrase by phrase, and provides illustrations to help the reader understand what was written. In the back, it includes a timeline of the war, as well as a glossary to explain some of the terms that were used back in the 1700s, as well as some of the legal jargon that they may not understand at this point in their lives. Students should know what the founding documents say, and they should take the time to study them in school. And this book assists in that study so perfectly with humor, beautiful and poignant illustrations, and with honesty. And another thing to keep in mind is that many students are not learning how to read or write in cursive these days. And with this lost knowledge, they won't be able to read historical records that have not been typed or transcribed. And this is something that's slowly returning to the curriculum in some schools, but this book will aid all readers to be able to understand and to read that document that brought us together as a country and gave us something to fight for. Another book is called The Hatmaker's Sign, a story by Benjamin Franklin, retold by Candace Fleming and illustrated by Robert Andrew Parker. The illustrations use simple watercolor drawings that follow the story perfectly. The book starts out showing Thomas Jefferson as he's writing the Declaration of Independence. He's finally perfected each of the phrases, and he's spoken the truth and with it an elegance that went with the document. This document is known as a masterpiece, and he was very proud to be able to put it through Congress. And as it was read aloud, everyone started to tear the document apart and wanted to change or delete words, sentences, and entire paragraphs. Benjamin Franklin was a natural storyteller and said to Jefferson, "This puts me in mind of a story." And he was actually known for saying those words. And he proceeds to tell Jefferson one of his most famous stories about a Boston hat maker creating a sign for his new hat shop saying, "John Thompson, hat maker, fashionable hats sold inside for ready money." As he leaves to take the parchment to the sign maker, he shows it to his wife, who suggests that he remove the phrase "for ready money." He agrees that the phrase is unnecessary and makes the change. And throughout his trek to the sign maker, he encounters others who suggest that he remove phrases, and he agrees. And then finally, he's left with nothing but a blank document. Franklin helps Jefferson understand that if everyone is going to read the document, they're going to want to make changes, and they're going to critique his work, but that Jefferson is the author and should be confident in his work. And I liked how this book gave further insight into historical figures of the American Revolution, but it also helps the reader to know that if they work hard on something and if they feel confident about it, then it is perfect. Be proud of the work that you've done, and don't let the critique of others wound your pride. And another book that I would highly recommend to anyone who's studying the American Revolution, and to include with any study of the Revolutionary War, is the Heroines of History series, Heroines of the American Revolution, America's Founding Mothers, by Diane Silcox Jarrett, and illustrations by Art Seiden. This book provides brief stories of 24 women involved in the war. And this includes white women, Native American women, and slaves. You'll see in the table of contents everyone that's mentioned. Each story is about 2 to 4 pages long. And it's a story. It's not just a biography, but it's a true story about what these women have done and their role in history and in the American Revolution. Illustrations they show the women in action. They show why that woman is important in the war. And also each chapter includes a brief text box, such as the one that you would see right here, which provides facts of that time period. And it includes information about colonial newspapers. It includes how marriage was done back in the day. It talks about, how women dressed, why they dressed the way that they did, all kinds of brief but really fascinating facts. And the illustrations so accurately describe the women and showcase their role in the war. These books have been written within the last 20 years. They are wonderful books that would work well with any student, whether they, are not very interested in reading but do enjoy looking at pictures. If they're students that are just learning how to use English as a second language. If it's a teacher that's just beginning a unit on the American Revolution. No matter what, if they're students in our school, then they should know these records. They should know these documents. I'm too used to working with records. But they should know these books, and they should be comfortable looking for picture books that will help them in their study. It'll help them get into the mindset of our founding fathers and mothers, and help them understand the Revolutionary War, the Declaration of Independence, and the mindset of the figures from that time, and it would help to bring the lessons home to the students. Thank you very much.